Hey everyone, Dan and Gav here from IGN. Now, Jurassic World trailer came out yesterday. It was incredibly exciting.
Yeah.
I'm a huge Jurassic Park fan. I think you are as well.
Yeah.
Now, I think the trailer was well received, but there was maybe one big divisive element in the trailer, and it's the appearance of genetically modified dinosaurs. People saying, is Jurassic Park fully realised as a fully functional theme park? Not enough. And we're just going to talk about whether we think genetic modified dinosaurs are a bit Gremlins 2 new batch, or is it appropriate for the Jurassic Park franchise? Well, so what are your first thoughts on that?
I mean, initially, I did feel a little tiny bit disappointed, I think, by this idea of genetically modified dinosaurs, because it almost seems like something we've seen like a million times before, like something, we mess with something a little bit more. Just to make it, better for the sequel sort of thing. But I think in what we've read about Jurassic World, and it certainly fits in with that sort of idea that Trevorrow has been saying that, people are bored by the old dinosaurs and, they need to do something new. And it's a huge resort now. Like, the park's been open for years.
Yeah,
and
they
years
want you
and
to stay
years.
there for weeks at a time. There's a golf course, there's resorts, there's shops.
Exactly, yeah.
Restaurants.
It's exactly like sort of like Universal Studios. And Universal Studios, they don't just keep the same rides all the time. They have to open new rides to attract new customers.
They tear out
and
new
things.
ones, the old ones and old favourites, and put in new ones.
Yeah.
I think that's quite telling in the trailer that you don't see T-Rex at all.
Yeah.
And my suspicion is that T-Rex is the oldest and biggest attraction. It is the Jaws ride of Jurassic World.
Okay, yeah.
And I don't think anyone's going to see... They probably go, but they go out with obligation.
Yeah.
And we've heard rumours of people being on their smartphones being bored.
Yeah.
I think that might happen when they go see T-Rex. Because there's another scene in the trailer with the Mosasaur, the water dinosaur.
Yeah.
Where people are loving it. And I kind of suspect that's a new attraction to get people in. Because people are on their phone and tablets in that scene. But they're capturing
filming it,
it. Yeah, they're absolutely loving it.
One of them is capturing it through the Facebook app, which is not a very safe way of capturing it. I would feel like it would crash or something like that.
Video producer talk.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, but we got a quote from the Masrani website, the viral site that came out the other week, and this is a quote from the CEO, Richard Weisner. He says that you always have to think of the new thing. He says, the world has seen what we have to offer, but they aren't in awe of it as they once used to be. We need to change that.
Well, I think that makes sense, because if you look at the trailer, they've had to introduce new things. You don't just look at a Stegosaurus anymore, you get to canoe past it. You don't get to just look at the Brachiosaur anymore, you have to go in this gyrosphere. So you can't really do that with a T-Rex.
And we know there's a petting zoo as well in it as well, so you can get close to it.
But you can't really do that with T-Rex, because you can't get that up close and personal with a T-Rex, because it'll eat you.
Yeah, I almost think it'd be like when you go to a zoo and you go to see the tigers and you go to these massive enclosures.
Yeah.
And they do it in the first Jurassic Park film. You go to see these big predators and they're sleeping all day or they're hiding and you can't see them, and it's just disappointing.
Yeah, and a little bit sad.
Yeah, so they're going to push the envelope. They're going to create a new genetic dinosaurs. The one is the D-Rex. We've heard rumours that it's got cuttlefish DNA, snake DNA.
Yeah.
I think in the trailer there's even some implication that it might fly. Because the
definitely
scratch marks
is,
it's got out of its enclosure.
Yeah.
And he says, oh, you think it climbed out? And Chris Pratt's character says, well, it depends.
And there are a couple of shots, we know it's really massive
down.
overheads. Whether or not that's just a shot because everyone is running, but that seems to suggest definitely that, because that was the big thing in Jurassic Park 3 that they introduced, was flying dinosaurs, and they were actually that's one of the scariest scenes, I think, in all of Jurassic Park, is when they're walking across that bridge and they realise they're in a cage. Because, how would you run away from a flying dinosaur? You don't, Daniel. That's how.
So I have to say, even though I think ostensibly it seems a bit of a hokey concept, doing the genetic splicing thing, I actually think it's really in keeping with kind of the spirit of the original film, which I think Trevorrow's trying to do throughout this movie. There's a couple of callbacks. Yeah. It'd be interesting to see how he balances those callbacks and whether he gets too indulgent. But hopefully he's going to be on the right side of that. And I think it's really tapping into the original. So the whole point of the original is they're trying to use science before they're ready to use it. They're overreaching. And before they could walk, they started to run. And I think they're doing the same thing here. So the park's been open for 10 years. Yeah. They've mastered the technology. They've caught up to the visionary science of the original. Yeah. They can breed these dinosaurs. They can control them. The end shot almost implies they've domesticated them in some way.
Definitely.
So they've got regular dinosaurs down.
Yeah.
And the trouble is when they start
something else.
And the trouble is when they start to push it. Now, there's a bit more kind of groundwork for this on the viral website again. If you go there, you can read about Henry Wu, who is the head geneticist of InGen.
Yeah.
He's the only recurring character from the
That's
original
right, yeah.
Jurassic Park. So when InGen was on hard times following the incident on Isla Nublar, he wrote a book called The Next Step, An Evolution of Gods. And he talks about creating entirely new species by combining genomes. And he says this technology is 50 years away. And he wrote that in 1995.
Right.
So this is only 20 years later, and they're already trying to do it. So they're, again, overreaching. And that's when the trouble's going to come, I think, is when you try to push it.
That has to be it, because why else would he be back?
Yeah.
But then in the photo that you've seen of him, he almost looks like a Bond villain. Like, he looks really proud. So maybe he himself is going against the stuff that he's actually written.
Maybe he wants to cement himself at a place in history as a visionary scientist, and maybe what happened on Jurassic Park kind of tarnished that reputation somewhat.
Yeah.
Well, he does seem quite a conniving individual just from this viral website as well, because even though he says creating new species is 50 years away, in 1997, when InGen is on the cusp of bankruptcy, he creates something called the Wu flower.
Right.
And what he does is he merges together two different genomes to create a new species.
Classic Wu.
To promote InGen and basically secure a buyer.
Okay, right.
So that seems like he's going against his own, what he's saying about like his own warnings.
Yeah. For me, like the reaction to the trailer and people going, "Oh, they don't need that. Dinosaurs are impressive enough." That's exactly the theme that Trevorrow wants to do, and I think there's a shot, and you pointed it out, where Bryce Dallas Howard is standing there with a flare. She obviously looks terrified as his enclosure opens, and like you said, that's going to be her. They're going to need like T-Rex to come and fight the T-Rex.
So I think
that's sort of like the old world having to defeat the new world sort of thing.
Definitely, I think it kind of is there in the original as well. They'll give T-Rex a dramatic arc.
Yeah,
he won't be in the film much at all. He'll be like this
forgotten
forgotten old creaky attraction at the beginning of the film, and I reckon she'll need to lure him out, a la Ian Malcolm.
Yeah,
and he'll reassert the natural order. He'll usurp his successor.
I think that's perfect.
Right, so we think genetically modified dinosaurs are kind of in keeping with the spirit of the original Jurassic Park movie, but we'd love to hear what you think in the comments below. And for everything on Jurassic World between now and its release next year, stay right here on IGN.